I'm your friendly neighborhood Web-Warrior Fanatic, and as promised, this is a recap video summarizing all the news that we got from the Fear No Evil article on April 16th. If you guys want to see a longer deep dive, you guys can check out my live stream where I talked about everything with chat, and we had like chat polls, figuring out what the community likes best about the box. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into it here. So the first thing that we got to know about this box is that it comes with 6 scenarios instead of the regular 5. So we have Kingpin as the capstone villain, and then we have found out that there's going to be 5 interchangeable underling villains with different main schemes that you can mix and match with them. So a lot of people in my live stream talked about Civil War. If you guys don't know, this previous expansion also came with mix and match main schemes with a main scheme stage 1A and main scheme stage 2A that you can put for any one of the Civil War leaders slash villains. So if you're facing like, the Iron Man villain, for example, you can use this main scheme right here with this main scheme, or like, this one with like this one or whatever, right? If you're facing like Captain Marvel, for example, it's the exact same thing. You can use those exact same main schemes or a different one. They're kind of like mix and match, but because of that, all the Civil War leaders have similar mechanics, right? Like all of them have steady here on their stage 2, and then they have steady on stage 4 as well. The one reviewed here is deal each player in counter card. Captain Marvel cannot take damage this phase. Same for like Iron Man, right? He's got steady on stage 2 and stage 4. And then whenever he's reviewed, deal each player in counter card, Iron Man cannot take damage this phase. So to kind of have like a similar mechanic that type of way. And a lot of people weren't a big fan of that. It was kind of a polarizing box in that regards. And Fear No Evil kind of brings that back, but in a elevated type of way, at least in the community's opinion and in my opinion as well. So we know we're gonna have these 5 underling villains in the box. We have Electro, we have Bullseye, we got Hammerhead, we got Purple Man, aka Kilgrave. For anyone that watches the Disney Plus show about Jessica Jones, that's Kilgrave right there, also known as Purple Man in the comics. And then we also have Typhoid Mary right here. These are the 5 underling villains. The article previewed the mechanics for Bullseye and for Electro, but we have not seen the mechanics for these 3 villains over here: Hammerhead, Purple Man, and Typhoid Mary. So basically, you pick one of them, right? Like Bullseye, for example, and you pick one of the main scheme modules that comes in the set. So they displayed 3 of them for us here. So we know the Getaway one. So it says right here, the Getaway 1 of 8, and there's 8 cards in this Getaway main scheme module. They also talked about the Protection Racket one. So we see a question mark out of 9 cards, but there will be, 9 cards here. This is 2 out of 9, so different cards here for that. And then we also saw the Raft Breakout here, which is another one of these possible main schemes that you can mix and match with each villain. So you can see right here, the Raft Breakout 1 out of 9. So unlike the Civil War main schemes here, where it's literally just the main scheme stage 1A and 1B, and you just put that, with whatever villain you want to face, these are a little bit more different, and they leave a little bit of a bigger impact and imprint on the scenario, because there's 9 cards and you only have 1 main scheme. So if you choose the Raft Breakout, for example, you have this main scheme. If this stage is complete, the players lose a game, but each minion gains when defeated. Remove 1 threat from the main scheme and 2 threat instead if the minion has a lead trait. So it kind of feels like you are in the raft, and as this threat threshold is like going up, when it hits 11, that means that you failed, and the minions, all the minions broke out of the raft. And then as you're defeating these minions, you are able to remove threat from the main scheme because you're helping contain all the minions in the raft. And there's a bunch of really powerful minions here. So we have like, Rhino, a big elite brute minion with toughness, villainous, attacks have overkill, 3 attack, big stat line. They also previewed Mysterio for us, who's also another elite minion that was, captured here. So he's a prisoner as well. 6 hit points, 2 scheme, 1 attack, also having villainous. And then we also have Baron Zemo here as another previewed big elite minion from this main scheme module right here. So we have the Raft Breakout. We got Protection Rack, which is also another super interesting one. And this one has like, it has different main schemes, and you kind of like randomly get one. So you feel like you're like in the streets of New York, and you're like in a China shop. And this main scheme here, if you get this one, then whenever excess damage is dealt to an ally, and X promote an ally or a minion in the play area, place an equal amount of threat on the main scheme, because it feels like, you don't want to damage, you don't want to do excess damage to any character, or else you're breaking all the China all around in the China shop. So that's adding up threat here, right? So we want to protect the China shop. We want to make sure we do, equal damage, equal to life, and you want to make sure your allies don't take excess damage as well, like from the villain, because then you got to put threat on here. Very, very thematic. People in the community were a big fan of this one, because they also have like the laundromat here, right? This one's very a cramped space in the laundromat. So it's like a huge like fist fight, a brawl going on here. You guys can see Jessica Jones in art. Force response after a character enters play in this play area, do 1 damage to it and place a threat on here. Super duper fun to get this one, because each time you play an ally, they'll take a damage, and you also put a threat here because it's getting super duper cramped in that laundromat. It's very thematic, and you can also swap between different main schemes with a change of venue right here, right? So Surge, when reviewed, swap your main scheme with the random set aside main scheme, place the threat from the previous main scheme on the new main scheme. So you guys can see like in the art here, Jessica Jones fighting Hammerhead. She is clearly in like the pizza shop in New York, and if she punched him too hard, straight through the wall into another shop, into the China shop here, right? So they have not previewed for us the pizza shop yet, like what that main scheme would look like, but you can even change to different main schemes and set the other one aside. So very fun mechanic here. People love this one. And then we also have the Getaway here, when this was the first preview one in the article, and I thought this would be my favorite one. But seeing the other ones, I actually like the Raft more. Like that one looks really cool. But let's talk about the Getaway here really quickly. So this one, whenever the round ends, if there is threat here, you do each of the following. You place a speed counter here, and if alongside is in play, you flip it to out front. Otherwise, place an additional speed counter here. So basically, this card, the alongside card, there's a front and back. It's a it starts off with out front. It's an attachment that you attach to villain. So this one's like a high speed car chase, and the main scheme here, as you are adding threat to it, it means that the villain is getting further and further away from you. And if this hits 9, the players lose the game, it means that the villain has escaped from you. And as you bring this down to 0, you are closer and closer to the villain, so you can actually like punch them in the face and do damage to them, right? So yeah, you want to get as close to the card as possible, but the further away that you are, the closer they are to winning the game. So you have the out front here, which is the one where the attached villain's attacks gain range because they're far away from you. And as a force interrupt, when a villain would be dealt any amount of damage, you remove that amount of threat from the main scheme instead. And then whenever you are able to close the distance, now you can actually attack them. And then alongside, here's the other side of that out front. You flip it over to this card. When revealed, each player takes 1 indirect damage, because like the villain's like hitting you, and then the villain takes 2 per player damage. So the flip side of out front, when you get close to them, then you're able to flip this card if there's no threat on the main scheme, and then you can flip over to alongside. You're right next to the villain. You can attack them, but at the end of the round, if there is if alongside is in play, you flip it back over to the out front. So they're always trying to pull out front of you, and then you're trying to get alongside them. That tug of war looks really thematic. Not sure if it's going to be fun. It's going to be very high tempo, which feels thematic to it, and all the cards in the module kind of push more tempo on you, right? When reviewed, for each speed counter on the main scheme, you choose one, spend a resource of any type, or place it on the main scheme. And then this one here, for each speed counter on the main scheme, you choose to exhaust character you control or take 1 direct damage, right? So this could be really bad if there's a lot of speed counters, and it looks like speed counters will build up like pretty consistently whenever the round ends if there's threat on the main scheme, right? So there's not that many ways to remove threat during the villain phase, because at the end of the round, that's after the villain phase ends. So normally you have to add that initial threat when the villain phase begins anyways. So you need stuff like a hard to ignore to really remove threat or thwart, during the actual villain phase. So that's a very interesting mechanic here. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun with a lot of villains feeling like they're like, running away from you, and you gotta like, get up to them, catch up to them, pull up alongside them, and then like punch them in the face and defeat them quickly before they get further away from you again, right? So out of these 3 main schemes that we were previewed, the Getaway, the Protection Racket, which is like in the streets of New York, and the Raft Breakout, the community voted that they liked the Raft Breakout the most. And I don't know if I was, being biased for that one, because whenever I first had the poll, during the live stream, community voted for Protection Racket. Like chat voted for this one to be their most favorite, and it was winning by like I think like 40%, and the other ones had like maybe around 30% of votes. And then like each like 30% for this and 30% for this. But then at some point, I'll let the poll run for like maybe like 5-10 minutes. And I was also talking about that. This is probably my favorite one. So I don't know if I influenced some of the chatters, but at the end of it, I think this won out at like 46% of the votes was for the Raft Breakout, and I think we had like 43% of the votes here for Protection Racket. So Raft Breakout just like ever so slightly beat out as the community's current favorite just from the preview article, right? Obviously, after we actually get to play it, we might all change our minds, but I just like how this is kind of more simple. And I love minions. A lot of the chatters also talked about how they love minion mechanics, and there's so many cool minion things going on. Just having like Rhino here, having Mysterio here, like they're all super thematic to like their actual villain character, and just seeing them as minions in scenarios is really fun. And we also have like the Master Key here, which is attachment on the villain, and after the villain schemes against you, you deal each of the activation's boost cards that is a minion to yourself as a face down counter card. So a lot of people probably know whenever you have these big minions, you know, they're really fun when they come out, but sometimes if they're boost cards, you know, it's unfortunate because the minion itself never actually comes out and play engage with you. But you know, thematic here with the Master Key, when the villain schemes, they're using that Master Key, they're unlocking the cells for these villains, and if they are a boost card, you also get them as a face down counter card, so you not only have to deal with the boosts of like triple boost icons here, you know, triple boost icons here. Same with Baron Zemo. They're nasty boost cards to get, but then they also come out as a minion if it is a scheme activation. Super duper fun mechanics there. So yeah, I am definitely most excited here for the Raft Breakout. So yeah, that's kind of the difference here between this and the Civil War main schemes that we've seen. And the community, you know, whenever I first previewed this, my first thoughts was that I wasn't super excited to get the Civil War main scheme type of like mechanic again, because I thought it was fine for Civil War, but I thought that they would be going back to like the regular main schemes that are very ingrained with the actual villain mechanics and has really good synergy with that. So I was a little bit disappointed to see that, but as I went down and read all the main schemes, I am much more sold on it now, and I'm actually really looking forward to. I actually really like the mechanic of how they did these main schemes. It's very, very modular, and the community chat totally agree with me. I think it was like 80 to 90% of chatters were very excited for this, and they were not disappointed that we're not getting like specific main schemes for each villain, that they're mixed and matched, because, you know, I think that's a little bit of a risky thing for Fantasy Flight Games to do for such a hyped box in this Daredevil box. But, you know, community agreed that this is something exciting, and I think we're all looking forward to it. Next, let's talk about the two villains that were previewed. We were previewed Electro, and we were previewed Bullseye here. And of the two, the community and myself agreed that we are most looking forward here to Bullseye. So let's go through his mechanics really quickly first. So we only got to see his stage 1 here. We don't know his stage 2 or stage 3, but we know that on stage 1 you set his adamantium lace spine aside. And in the text right here, it does say that on his one review for his stage 2, he gains access to that adamantium lace spine. So I really love that huge jump from standard mode to expert mode, right? Because the adamantium lace spine is a permanent attachment. If you're playing him on standard, you don't get the lace spine on his whole entire stage 1. You get it whenever you flip him over to stage 2. If you're doing expert mode, he starts off on stage 2. So this is already in play, and it will probably be in play for stage 3 as well, right? We don't know for a fact, but I think that we can assume that. So I love it whenever there's a huge jump, because for players that want to play an easier scenario, they can play standard, and for players that want that challenge, they can play expert and actually feel like they're getting challenged, right? So I really like that. Bullseye looks really tough because the adamantium lace spine prevents you from rushing him down, right? Each time he would take damage, prevent all but 3 of that damage. I read this wrong in the chat, so huge shout out to my chatters that corrected me on this. But basically, the way that this works is that you cannot do more than 3 damage with a single instance to Bullseye while the lace spine is on the side. So let's say, for example, if you play a swing web kick, you do 3 damage to Bullseye, and there's 5 damage prevented. You put that 5 damage on the adamantium lace spine right here. Then if there are 6 or more damage, then you flip the card over. So basically, you have to effectively waste 5 damage, waste a big chunk of your damage on Bullseye if you are trying to flip this card over, right? This can only flip whenever you waste 6 damage, right? You need to, like, you know, hit him for 4, hit him for 5, you know, you're wasting 1, wasting 2. You have to make sure that you actually are inefficient, waste damage, get 6 on here, and then you flip the card over to the damage spine here, where now you can actually hit him and do full damage with all your hits. Super thematic. I love the art here too for Bullseye. But it says here, for response after Bullseye schemes, remove 3 damage from here. If there is no damage here, flip the card back over. So you keep all the 6 damage on the damaged spine after you flip it over. And if he schemes twice, it makes sense. It's kind of thematic. He's scheming. He's like healing back up. Whenever he removes all of those counters, it flips back over to his adamantium lace spine side. So like he is a very tanky villain because of this, and he's gonna be pretty difficult to rush down because it's like if you want to do a big chunk of damage, you have to waste a bunch of damage on this. Or if you just want to do small instances, you gotta do like 3 or less to actually get damage through without wasting that damage, right? So very, very fun mechanic here. I hope that he can get retaliate because that will make him even more gnarly, right? Because then, you want to do these small instances of damage. He's going to retaliate on each one if he has access to retaliate. We didn't see any retaliate in this kit here, but that's kind of my prediction and speculation that he'll probably get that. But that aside, Bullseye, when he activates, each of his boost cards gets an additional boost icon. His activation attack, he also gains range. Super thematic to Bullseye, throwing knives at you with his ranged attacks, spitting his tooth out at you, stuff like that. So very, very fun here. And Bullseye, I think they really like nailed his theme. He is killing your allies, dude. He is an ally murderer. So you guys can see here, Incessant Pursuit, attached to an ally without this card attached, otherwise it gains surged. Forced Interrupt, when the villain would attack you, it attacks your ally instead, but the attack also gains overkill. If the attack defeats attached ally, remove them from the game. Super duper nasty here, right? So like, it really deters chump blocking, and he also has a I think it's this card right here. Yeah, this card right here. If the activation is attack, it gains overkill with 3 boost icons. Insane. So he's really going to deter the strongest strategy in Marvel Champions, which is playing a bunch of allies. He's going to deter that and then make you second guess, do you want to play this ally or not? Because Bullseye is going to take out your friends, take out your allies. And Bullseye also has this attachment right here called Raise the Stakes, attached to Bullseye. Force Interrupt, whenever he attacks, give him an additional boost card for attack. If it defeats a friendly character, you remove them and this card from the game. What the heck? Otherwise, you shove this card back into the counter deck. So either it goes back into the counter deck or it gets removed from the game. But it may remove your ally if you block with the ally. So just eradicating your ally, not just like knocking them out, but literally murdering them on the spot. Crazy. I love this mechanic with Bullseye. I think it's super thematic. He looks super duper fun. And I think that if you pair him with this one right here, the Getaway main scheme, that's going to be one of the toughest like challenges in Marvel Champions, because this makes you fight scenario like with a high pace, because you're adding speed counters every single round. You want to make sure you can close the gap, and you're not able to do damage to a villain unless you actually get up alongside them, right? So they're going to constantly get out front of you, right? Like in their car, and you're chasing them, from behind. So if you're pairing this scenario with Bullseye, he's going to be always running out front of you. And whenever you catch up to him, well, too bad for you and for me. He has the adamantium lace spine, so it's not even going to take full damage. You can't even do like a huge swing web kick on him whenever you catch it to him. You have to make sure that you flip this over first before you hit like a big hit, or you got to do a bunch of small, chump damage to him, like 3 or less damage, right? So yeah, it's going to be crazy. He's like killing all your allies at the exact same time, throwing his knives with his range attacks. Very, very fun. Yeah, he looks awesome. I am super hyped on him in the community. Chat, you guys also voted that Bullseye is the underling scenario you are most excited for. And, whenever they first previewed this box for us, or the art here, they omitted Bullseye from the art. So we only saw Kingpin and Typhoid Mary. And I think that's pretty good, because I was super hyped and shocked to see Bullseye right here whenever we previewed the article. Crazy. Bullseye is such a cool villain. If you guys have been watching Daredevil Born Again, or even Daredevil Season 3, Bullseye, super duper cool. Ben Poindexter, one of the coolest characters ever. So yeah, huge fan of Bullseye, and we're all super excited to see him in this box as a premier villain. The other villain that we got to see here was Electro, and this is the female Electro named Francine Fry. Huge shouts to all my chatters that gave us the whole backstory for how she became Electro. So her mechanics look pretty fun as well. So when reviewed, find electric charge, attach it to Electro, and then place 2 per player charge counters on it. As a force response after Electro schemes, you place a charge counter on the electric charge. So she has this card right here, and then she gains a bunch of electric charges. And whenever she attacks, as a force interrupt, you have to remove a charge counter, give Electro an additional boost. The attack gains overkill. So overkill here is super duper prevalent in both Bullseye's scenario and in Electro's, which I love to see. We all love to see that, because We talked about this before. Allies is the strongest strategy in Marvel Champions. Allies are kind of overtuned because they can thwart, attack, and also chump block right during that next villain phase for you, right? So normally when you play an event, you either play a defense event, an attack event, or a thwart event. Allies can essentially do, 2 to 3, when they're played, which is pretty powerful, right? So to deter that is really cool. And then as a hero action, you can spend an energy resource or 2 resources of any type to remove a charge counter from here. Very fun, very thematic. You want to take out those charge counters, or she's gonna be swinging with a bunch of damage. And of course, it's electricity, so it's gonna overkill. It's gonna go everywhere. It's gonna defeat your ally and go over to you. If the ally cannot block the entire attack themselves. And basically, her mechanics, it's all about charging up those electric charges, right? So here you have like a side scheme. Whenever it's defeated, place 3 charge counters on the electric charge. 6 threat is a lot, especially in true solo, but at higher player counts, this will get more easy to deal with more players. You also have the drain of power here. So this one's super nasty. Comes in with 3 drain counters. You attach your identity, exhaust each upgrade you control. So we're talking about this, with chat, but this is so bad for like SPDR Penny Parker because all of her upgrades get exhausted. When an upgrade you control would ready, you may spend energy or 2 of any type if you do remove a drain counter from here and then ready the upgrade. Otherwise, the upgrade does not ready. Guys, Penny Parker only has a hand size of 3 in hero form. Her economy is based on those upgrades that you have because you can use sync ratio to generate the upgrades resources. Well, you can't do that because they're all exhausted and you have to spend your actual hand to let them ready. This is like a huge turn killer for her. It's tough for like Ironheart or Iron Man as well. But some heroes that uses less upgrades, like if you're playing like Peter Parker Spider-Man and you don't care about the web shooters, that's the only card that this card really affects, right? So it depends on which hero you're playing. Super duper fun and thematic, right? If you're playing like a suited hero with like electronics, then this kind of like kills you. If you're playing like Spider-Man who has own powers, doesn't really rely as much on a suit, then this doesn't matter as much. Very fun flair. And then Chain Lightning here, this one's also another fun one. For each character you control, choose exhaust the character or deal damage to character. But if Electro has charge counters, you do 3 instead and remove one of her charge counters, right? So you take out the charge counter to do extra damage to like all of your allies and to your identity, depending on which option you choose, right? They can either exhaust to kind of like defend that charge, that chain lightning, or everyone just takes a bunch of damage, right? Very fun, very thematic. Love the flair of this scenario here as well. And then finally, let's take a look at the only other villain that was previewed in the article, and that is the capstone villain Kingpin. So Kingpin is not an underling villain, so he does not have a mix and match main scheme. He's gonna have his own actual main scheme. However, we were not shown what his main scheme is gonna look like. We don't know if this is like for extra mode as well, but we know that at least for standard mode, he has a stage A1 and he flips to a stage A2 right here with 25 per player hit points. Very tanky guy. Thematic here for Kingpin. On this stage, he has Stalwart, and you cannot do damage to him, and he cannot have upgrades attached. So basically, on this side right here, you can't attack him because Kingpin, maybe he's a mayor here, maybe people just love him, right? You cannot hurt this good guy. You have to gain public support and garner public support in order to flip Kingpin over to his martial artist side where he's steady, and then you can actually like fight him, right? And on this side, Kingpin's not gonna fight you, right? He's just scheming. He's a master schemer, adding a ton of threat. So depending on how those main schemes look like, this could be absolutely brutal. But I do like that we at least have one scenario with a dedicated main scheme for it. So even if people don't like mixing and matching main schemes, we still have like a true capstone villain with like their own specific main scheme mechanics and everything that interact directly with his cards and a synergy with the villain mechanics here. So the way to garner public support is through this environment right here. So if you guys have been watching Daredevil Born Again, we have like the anti-vigilante task force. So like Kingpin is convincing everyone that vigilantes are bad. So they're like, okay, we don't really support these vigilantes. They're kind of bad guys. Force response after a minion is defeated, you can place a support counter on here, right? All these minions, these criminals are committing crimes, all over New York. So as you defeat one, you can get a public, a support counter on this card and you're gaining that public support. As a force interrupt when the villain phase begins, if there's at least 2 per player plus 2 support counters here. So in True Soul, it's going to be 4 counters. For 2 players, it's going to be 6. For 3 players, it's going to be 8. And then for 4 players, it's going to be 10 counters. You flip Kingpin and advance the main scheme to stage 2A, then flip the card. Once again, we don't know what the main scheme looks like, so that's going to be interesting. But you can flip this, and it's going to flip over to the high side here, where we actually now have public support, the flare here for Jessica Jones. So nice of them to finally show some gratitude for once. Very fun flare and theme here. Force response after a minute is defeated, we can place a support counter here. And then as interrupt, whenever an enemy would be given a face down boost card, remove one per player support counters from here instead. And that's gonna be helpful here, because Kingpin on his stage A2, 2 scheme, 2 attack, steady. Force interrupt whenever he activates against you. If you're not engaged with the minion, you give him an additional boost card. So he's going to be giving you, double boost for each activation if you're not engaged with the minion. And if you are engaged with the minion, I mean, they're going to be hitting you too, right? So it's going to be pretty brutal, right? If Kingpin does not have his minions doing this stuff for him, he's going to do it himself, and he's going to get a double boost for that. So really fun theme. Yeah, I love the scenario. I love the minions that they've teased here for us as well. We've seen like the bear hug. This is probably one of my favorite attachments that we've seen here. If Kingpin has the martial arts trait attached to your hero, so he's bear hugging you, comes in with 3 grip counters because he's gripping you super duper tight here. You cannot change the alter ego form. Makes sense. He's bear hugging you. Force interrupt. When you would thwart or attack, remove a grip counter from here instead. Brutal. So you're not able to thwart or attack. If you play a thwart event, you cancel the event, you just remove a grip counter here instead. Same thing if you exhaust, make a basic thwart or attack activation. He's hugging you way too tight. This reminds me of Magneto's Wrapped in Metal, which is like one of my most despised cards from that Magneto villain scenario. And this is arguably worse because it's 3 activations essentially canceled, right? Like, this might take up to 3 turns to get rid of, right? So this could be really bad. Kingpin's cane here has the stun mechanic. It's trying to stun you, like whacking you with his cane. Very thematic there as well. And then the allies, or the minions for him, his allies is, we got Spot here. Super cool. This is the second Spot minion that we've seen in Marvel Champions. He comes to play with a Spot counter. And basically his mechanic here is whenever he will be dealt damage from an attack, if there's a Spot counter, you remove the counter and do that damage to the attacker instead, just like in the image. Spider-Man punching himself here with Spot's annoying nuisance. Otherwise, you place a Spot counter here. So basically, you want to kill him in one push, but you have to remove that first Spot counter first. You have to hit yourself, and then you can do like one big hit on him. If you aren't able to take him out in that one hit, then you keep on adding those Spot counters, and then he just gets super duper annoying, right? A very nasty, annoying minion. And then we also got to have the Reluctant Black Cat here too. She is very, very cool. She is villainous, and she's Underling Thief, 6 hit points, 1 scheme or thwart. What does that mean? And 1 attack. So basically, when there's 4 threat here, you can make Black Cat as an ally that takes 2 constant damage after she attacks or thwarts. As a hero action, spend a mental resource to place a threat here. If there's 4 here, then you take control of Black Cat. So basically, you want to add threat to her. You gotta spend 4 mental resources essentially, and then she becomes your ally. That's so thematic. You can like pair off you or whatever, right? Or like convince her why working for Kingpin is bad. Like help her out in like her thing, and then she's gonna help you out now. So very, very cool. This becomes a thwart stat instead of the scheme stat, and she's gonna help you out. She retains villainous though. So they also announced here that there is a rule change in Fear No Evil that introduces the villainous keyword for friendly characters here. And one has to wonder why they did that. We don't know why. Some people are speculating that it's going to be for a Punisher ally or hero using the villainous mechanic. So basically, for Black Cat here, whenever she's your ally, if she attacks for 1, she still has villainous. So you get to flip the top card of the encounter deck as a boost card, and you add the boost icons to her attack or her thwart activation, right? That can be so fun, so powerful. We've seen allies that have like a similar mechanic to that with like Wiccan or like Gambit or the Scarlet Witch ally from Quicksilver's hero pack. So like we've seen similar stuff to that, but now it's just straight up villainous, right? It's just that boost icon is gonna apply, for her activation, and one can only wonder what we're gonna get. I think a lot of chat was also thinking that we might be getting that for potentially even Daredevil, because for a hero to have that mechanic, with the encounter deck, because he has that sonar sense, that radar sense, so maybe he can also work with the encounter deck using the villains boost cards, boost icons against them, right? So not sure what that's gonna be, but we're all super excited right now, and yeah, that is the Kingpin scenario. So one huge thing that this box is looking like, we haven't seen too much about Kingpin for this, but it's very ally deterrent. The box seems to be very ally deterrent, and I talked about this with chat, and we all agreed that Fear No Evil sets the tone for the current environment. This is the first like really big hype expansion in this current environment. And this is like a lot of people are gonna know this box as kind of like the big start to that current environment, because other boxes we kind of got not really knowing what the current environment would entail. But now this will set the tone in terms of like the reprints and everything, and hopefully it seems like the tone is going to be pretty exciting because the tone seems to be very ally deterrent. So maybe this will start a new era in Marvel Champions where allies aren't as powerful as they once were in that legacy environment. You know, in the legacy environment, you just put like 8 allies in your deck, and you're with most heroes going to have a pretty decent time depending on how the rest of your deck is built. But now, you know, against like Bullseye, against Electro, maybe events might be even better, right? And we're not sure about these villains here. We're not sure if Kingpin has other cards that would deter chump blocking and allies too, like maybe with his main scheme. But I'm hoping for it, and I think that's gonna be super duper fun. So yeah, we're all very excited right now. I think almost everyone is super duper hyped for the box. I had a poll in that live stream, and a chat voted. I think 90% of the vote here said that this will be the greatest expansion ever in Marvel Champions. So that's a pretty tall task. I think that currently the community, kind of as a consensus, myself included, think that Sinister Motives is the best expansion in the game, you know, as of now. And I think that this definitely has a chance to overtake Sinister Motives. I'm not sure, we have to actually play it to know. I think that, you know, we can guess. If I had to bet, I think it's going to be better. I think it's going to be better because mostly, I'm not just because of the scenarios looking really cool, but I think the heroes too. Because when have we got such a hype hero like Daredevil in the actual expansion of the box? The closest I would say is Miles Morales Spider-Man in that Sinister Motives box. But other than that, like for like the Mutant Genesis wave, which is also a super hype box, um, we didn't get like Cyclops or Wolverine or like those like top tier, you know, X-Men heroes. We got Shadowcat and Colossus, which you guys know I love Colossus now. And I think Colossus is a very cool hero, but they just aren't like the big names like Cyclops and Wolverine and Daredevil here. So moving over to the heroes, we did get a slight tease for the heroes that I was not expecting that we would get. They gave us the aspects for these heroes here. So, you know, I did a bunch of polls, you know, on my channel, community polls, all of that. And people voted for Echo to be in an aggression precon. And people voted for Daredevil to have a justice precon. Quite a few people suggested that we might be getting dual aspect heroes with either one of them, like with justice aggression for Echo, or justice aggression for Daredevil, or justice protection for Daredevil, right? Because both these characters have like good ties in all the aspects. So the article did tease us, and we do know that Echo is coming with a pre-built protection deck. Not a lot of people, including myself, thought that. And her playstyle will revolve around mimicking the techniques of her allies and fellow heroes. That sounds interesting. Daredevil is going to have a pre-built Justice deck. 90% of my community voted for Daredevil to have a pre-built Justice deck. I also thought that he would have one as well. I think that only makes sense because he is one of the most Justice-y heroes in the game. But we also found out he's going to have a special Sense deck. And the first thing that I thought about that was, would that be like an invocation deck like Doctor Strange? I'm not sure. And this would let him double up on his actions. What does that mean? Like basic activations or like Thor actions, attack actions, hero actions? We're not sure what that means yet. But seems fun here to have an extra sense deck that works with Daredevil because, you know, he has that extra sense, being able to like see where everything is. So yeah, that's basically all we got on these guys. And they also just remind us that we are getting Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Electro, and Iron Fist as the 4 additional heroes with their own hero packs throughout this Defenders wave. So yeah, and we'll also have the Shaolin Snare pack. They're just reminding us right here. We already know about that. But yeah, that is basically it here. So super duper hype box. It's gonna be releasing on July 24th. We found that out here. If you click, you know, go over to the store, and then if you view this on store, it says product releases on July 24th, 2026. That's when we're finally gonna get Fear No Evil this summer, coming to Marvel Champions. Here's like the box here. We analyzed, you know, some of the stuff here on the back of the box. We didn't really find any like unique information, but yeah, we did get the full art here for how Daredevil will look like on his hero card, because usually the art that they have here on the back of the box is the actual art on the identity. So yeah, we have Echo here, Daredevil, both looking pretty cool. And yeah, that is basically it here for this video, guys. Just a shorter recap of that super long live stream. If you guys are interested in checking out the full live stream, hanging out, if you're like driving, if you're, doing some chores and you want something to play in the background and you guys want to hang out, feel free to check that out. It was a lot of fun hearing all of the community's takes and y'all's actual first initial thoughts on the box as well. But yeah, it was super duper fun. And yeah, this is the recap video that I promised you guys. Hopefully you guys are excited for this box as well. I am super duper excited. Probably the most excited I've ever been for a new Marvel Champs released. Probably before this, it would be Magneto was whenever I was last this excited, because I jumped into the game during Next Evolution. And yeah, this is super hype. So yeah. All right, guys, this is going to be it for my recap video. Hopefully, you guys have a better understanding of all the mechanics that we see in the box and what the community feels about it. Let me know down in comments if you guys are hyped and ready for this expansion. Daredevil finally coming to Marvel Champions, and we know we're getting Kingpin and Bullseye as villain scenarios. Super duper hype. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.